Easy E, how are we?
Shawnee, what's happening? We caused a bit of a stir last week.
We did. We caused a lot of different stirs. I've actually got a little bit nervous when you said that. It's kind of like walking up to like airport security being like, oh, I definitely have something on me. So I'm like, which stir is he talking about here? We should really talk about this before we do the intro. What stir are you talking about, Mr. Lawless?
Well, one, we put out there if people wanted to ask any questions.
Yes.
And my God, did we get a lot of questions?
Yeah, we got a fair few in the story and stuff like, oh, okay, we better pick one of these and go with it. We did get a few questions on this.
Yeah, and a few people came out to agree with us about our little Cork comment.
yeah. You know what? I was trying to think of an analogy for that. So basically, those that I didn't get the email, obviously, because I didn't do the race. But they said the one thing that got me was they said that there was enough water there for everyone. And that's the exact same as a bar on a Saturday night having no alcohol. And then all of a sudden the kegs get filled right before or just after last orders. Because when you were leaving there, and that was around 4:15, 4:20, 4:15, you finished the marathon. By 4:30, I was at the just past the finish line, and I saw the defence forces come up, a lot of trucks, the water and stuff, and I was getting on to you, but you were already gone. So that's probably near 4:30 at this stage. The half marathon's well and truly gone. 10K is gone. 4.5 hours. A lot of people are pretty much wrapped up there at that stage. And then they're starting only then bringing in the crates of water, you know. And the only reason I hung around was because waiting for Neve, because somehow she missed you and your big, beautiful head of hair on the 41K mark. Beautiful. So that's why I seen that. I was like, oh, they're very late with that. So, yeah, they had water left over because those had left. And one story, I don't know if I don't even think I mentioned the podcast, but when I was waiting for you at the 40K mark, and look, I've always ran Dublin. I never saw Dublin as a spectator. So someone may be like, actually, Sean, that happened to Dublin. But while I was waiting for you, I saw people like visibly looking down the ground to see if any of the water bottles thrown down had some water. And I, hand on heart, I saw people pick up those water bottles and like, till they see a small bit and try and get any water they could before making the next stop, because like it was hot as hell. And in that situation, I may have done the same. Like, so there was to say there was enough water there when you're carrying water that late into an event there. That part didn't add up. Like, either hold up and apologize or be like, here, this is exactly what it was. But don't say that when there was thousands seeing you bringing in water 4.5, 5 hours into an event that's supposed to last for a lot of people like less than 5 hours, you know, or 4.5 hours, whatever you want to call it.
It definitely was. It was either say sorry or don't pretend. Yeah,
and it put a sour taste because like I didn't run it, but seeing it, the atmosphere and all there, I was like that was great. Like, we talked a little bit about positive things about the Cork City Marathon, and then when I saw that email, I was like, no, kind of own up to it, because maybe it is. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying it's very easy to organize the event. It's not, but like I'd rather like the honest come out than just like, oh, we definitely had enough water though. Don't know what people are talking about. That's what the email kind of came across like to me.
Yeah. No, to be fair, I never had an issue with the water. As I said, I was perfectly okay.
But you also refused Lucozade water off me at the 40K mark because you're afraid of drinking more so than anything else. You were the exception to the rule from what I saw out there.
There was a distinct difference, but equally, I was just in that sweet spot of ahead of the crowd as well for those coming in on the half marathon and stuff. So I don't know what was behind me. Yeah. But yeah, look, we caused a bit of a stir, but sure, look, it's honesty is the best policy on this podcast. And I don't think we highlighted enough how great last weekend was. I'm still on a buzz. I took 2 days off training this week. It was weird because I felt so good after we did the 180K. Then the next morning, got up, did the 10 miles, felt fantastic. And then Connor was looking at my stuff going, what mother of God.
Is this your coach?
Yeah, he was like, 2 days off. Minimum now. I was like, oh no, I've cooked the goose. I got too excited. But he had a good chat with me, and I was getting carried away myself, but it was kind of like recovery is as important as training. And remember that. It's an Ironman. Recovery is important to training. We do not want to burn out. This is about longevity. This is about training tomorrow. This is about keeping yourselves going. Fantastic. I could do a 10 mile on tired legs. But remember, rest days are important too, which sets us up so nice, John, because we got a lot of questions on marathon training plans.
Right out, we hit the intro music for this week's episode of the podcast. Let's go. It doesn't seem like well over half a year ago that we were talking about how we got on in the Dublin Marathon. Yet, if you listen to this podcast in a day it's released on a Monday, it is exactly, it's the start of a 16-week training plan leading up to the Dublin Marathon already. And like, my mind's blown that it's already only 16 weeks away from Dublin. So we put out a story of different guests and stuff. We're definitely looking to have more guests on the podcast next couple of weeks. But one of the questions was, hey, 16 weeks is coming up for the Dublin City Marathon. We love to talk about that. And it's like, that's a very time-specific thing to talk about. So the only time we could really do it, this is pretty much the last week we can talk about 16-week training plan. And I know, Eric, you're famous for your 4.5-week training plan for the Dublin Marathon last year. So let's get into 16 weeks.
Yeah, so first things first, don't do what I did. A whole lot of stupid and grit to do what I did, but 16 weeks seems like a long time. But when you enter into a training plan, now a couple of people asked us, how can you give us a 16-week training plan? We absolutely could, but we haven't got the time. When you get a coach should be there to kick you on. And that's why we stepped away from the training, just because our other bits and pieces are keeping us so busy in our own training, and it's unfair on people to do so. But we're going to talk a little bit about some of the key mistakes we've made, some of the key points you could be considering. And bridging off what we said in the intro, it's not about running the marathon next week. It's about running the marathon in 16 weeks. And you're going to have to bite the bullet probably for the first 4 weeks and introduce yourself to some slow running. And that is some important information we need to get. I don't know how many people I've chatted to over the last couple of weeks, and we've talked about running. They're like, I just go out and run as hard as I can, and then I do that 3 times a week, but I can't run a sub 2 hour marathon. And this goes back to when we started this podcast. There was 4 clowns who hadn't a clue about running, who were all going to do a different method. And I went with the heart rate training, and I was running at 8 kilometers an hour, and you were all laughing at me. Yeah. And I ended up doing a marathon 2-3 hours, or we did 5. I can't even remember what we did our first one in, but it went from a 5 hour thereabouts to a 3:30, or 3:35 by following heart rate training. And so it's trying to get that point across that when we talk about these topics, when we talk about the different types of training sessions, just understand some of them are going to be frustrating. Some of them are going to feel really hard, and they're supposed to feel really hard, but they're not supposed to be hard all of the time. And like we just mentioned, what a coach has told me and has reminded me is, Eric, you can't go 100% all the time. You need to let the body recover in order to get better. And I had a good discussion with Lorcan Fisher on this, and he put it perfectly for me. And I don't know where he picked it up from, but when you're doing something like a marathon, you need to think of your aerobic base. So think of your fitness like a pyramid. Okay. So when you keep your heart rate low and you're running in zone 2, and you're going to hear us talking about these heart rate zones. And if you haven't got a heart rate monitor, zone 2 is your conversational pace. You should be able to have a chit chat with the person beside you, and everything above that increases with a gradient up to your zone 4, zone 5, where you don't even talk to yourself. So when you build that base, the base of your pyramid is your zone 2. The more time you can spend in that, the better your aerobic base gets, the better cardiac management you get. So the bigger you build that base of the pyramid, then you can have bigger blocks on top of that. And that is where your pace and your effort gets better. So if you have no aerobic base, think of the size of that pyramid. It can only be built so high. And that's what you need to think about. As frustrating as it is to be running at a 7-minute kilometer, think of the foundation that you're giving yourself. So on the day you want to go fast, instead of running for 5 minutes at the max all-out pace, now we're all of a sudden up to 45 minutes. Now we're up to an hour at the pace you want to do that you didn't think you could do. And it's all about building that base. So that's just one of the basics I want to get out of the way early. And then we're going to talk about some of the different training sessions, Sean, and we'll back and forth about some of the mistakes we've made. Yeah. And again, this will probably spur a load of questions from people, but hopefully it gives people some sort of knowledge on how to take this.
Piggybacking off that, I suppose, would be what's your starting point for 16 weeks? Ideally, you'd be able to jog maybe 5-6K at that stage. But whether you are or not, I mean, what you're talking about there, Eric, is build up your aerobic base. But what you're not saying is get long runs in 5 days a week. You got to slowly build up that volume and stuff as well. Otherwise, you keep pounding the payments. And let's say you've done very little running to now. Don't be thinking, hey, if I just do slow runs, I can go out 5 times a week and go for an hour plus each time. That's going to lead down towards injury as well. I suppose when you talk about aerobic base, the most important run of the week is that long run on the week. Well, usually for most people on the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the key things, like for me, the biggest mind-blowing part of it is, oh my God, it's so boring. It's so slow. What I've started to do on my longer runs and on my longer cycles is when I start to see a cardiac drift. So when I'm running at a 6:15 and I'm holding 136, 136, 137, 138, 139, I hit the lap. And then I slow down. So then I'm beginning to see how long was my body able to maintain that heart rate? And it was only 4 minutes before I ended up in the 140s. But then when I slowed down to the 6:30 pace, I was 11 minutes there before it started to drift. And what I've built myself up to over 4 weeks is a 10 mile after a 180 kilometer cycle, all with my heart rate under 140 beats per minute at a 6:10 pace. There was no change in pace. Now, I walked up every steep hill because I'm not stupid. It's all about keeping the heart rate in that zone. It wasn't to run up the hill because I'm a hero and then have a heart rate of 170.
But that's your first 4 weeks.
But that's 4 weeks of being severely frustrated with how slow I had to run. So it just shows you the patience you need.
Yeah, they say that the long run, we've talked before in the podcast, somewhere between 25 to 30% of your overall weekly mileage. So a couple of smaller runs, especially in that first week, and then having that long one at the end. Maybe 3 to 4 weeks. Well, it depends. If you're running 5 times a week right now, there's no reason you can't to start this. But if you're only running 1 or 2, not to do it. But it's funny, you go back to what we talked about all those years ago. I was more of that strength training kind of person for the marathon. And it probably serves to do more injuries because you will hear a lot of cross training and stuff now. But as much as I love my strength training, as much as I love my gym work, I think the worst thing you could do right now is add a load of volume with running and then start adding a load of volume to gym and doing exercise not used to or going heavier and used to. Like, it's almost maintenance of gym work right now, like or a small bit of improvement there. But if you start doing, like, I've never done barbell back squats before, you start loading yourself up doing that and then you're doing the runs and all the rest, it could be a bit dicey. But if you've built yourself up right now to do a lot of strength training, you could probably still keep that going as well.
Yeah, 100%. It's one thing, depending on what your motivation is. Weights do complement running, but you're not going high weight, low rep. You're going low weight, higher rep. You might correct me, Sean, but for me, it's about maintenance. It's about stability. It's about core strength. It's about functional movement. It's not about benching 400 kilos.
No, absolutely not.
So the game is to run a marathon and be injury free. So when you're adding in, so we'll talk about elements of cross training. So I suppose to put some structure on it, let's start week 1. We're planning. Me and you are sitting here, Sean, and we're saying, right, what's our level? And this is where you have to be honest. Am I a beginner? Am I slightly intermediate? Or am I an advanced runner? If you're a beginner, you're looking at about 3 runs a week. 3 runs a week with a little bit of extra. So maybe a swim or a cycle, or maybe a little bit of yoga or conditioning work added on top of your 3 runs a week. You're doing a marathon. You might not do it in a sub 4. You might not do it in 3.5. It depends on your base. But 3 runs a week will get you through a marathon as long as you're consistent for 16 weeks. Intermediate guys, you want to be thinking about 5 runs a week. If you're trying to get under that 3.5, you're looking at about 5 runs a week and then other sessions. And then if you're going expert and you're trying to get under 3 hours, you could see up to 7 runs a week. And that's very managed training. Sometimes you're going to be doing 2 a days. That sounds scary, but last week I had 4 2-a-day training sessions because of the sport I'm trying to do. So it is doable once you manage the runs that you're doing on certain days.
Once again, you've also built yourself up and do the 7-day, 5-day challenge now before getting those 2 days. I mean, if you're going now 16 weeks and you haven't built yourself up at all, you're like 3-hour marathon, you want to start really considering that, because you might start burning yourself by doing too much too fast.
And these are broad strokes.
Yes.
You might be between beginner and intermediate. So maybe you're a 4 run a week kind of person. Maybe you're a 3 runs a week until maybe the 4th week when you develop your confidence. And you might end on 5 runs a week in the build up. So everything is fluid and dependent on you, but it is important to be realistic with your base, realistic with your goal. And what I would advise anyone, in the first 6 weeks, do not set a marathon goal. Set a consistency goal. You say you're going to run 3 times a week. You get out 3 times a week. Then when you're consistent, you've trained a little. The body is going to tell you where you are. You know, you're going to say, do you know what? I have the confidence now to say a 4-hour marathon. And the reason I say that is I have said I am going to do a 4-hour marathon, and then I'd miss a few training sessions, and then the pressure is on me to do it. But at least if I focus on consistency, because it's a lifestyle change, a marathon training, and it's what we forget, Sean, and I do it.
Done right.
We go up and we do it. We forget it's a lifestyle change, but we now live this life, so we don't notice it anymore. But from going to your first marathon, maybe your second marathon, or maybe you're just getting back into it, again, it's a lifestyle change. You have to include these training sessions around your kids, your partners, work, and be consistent. And it's developing that timetable over the next 16 weeks for yourself in order to achieve good goals.
Yeah. And it is a little bit, we will be talking about different things because it is a bit individual. For example, we've got similar fast marathon times that are cross training, but different. For example, Eric does more yoga and swimming type stuff, whereas I like to live in the gym as well as work there. But it's interesting you talk about not setting goals and marathon pace the first 6 weeks. I think one way to slowly introduce speed would be a bit of strides and stuff at the end for 20 seconds and just little bits of that. When you were doing 3:35 or 3:34, I think you got for your fast marathon, when did you start thinking about marathon pace? And did you put in marathon pace in your training when you did it?
No, for me,
no, you can go for it.
My entire marathon training was based off of heart rate. And the pace that I was going to do was set probably around 6 weeks before, when I did a long run and I was running at a 4:20 pace with a heart rate of 140. So that was dictating to me what I was capable of doing. So the ideal for me was if I could maintain the 140 heart rate, 150 through the half marathon, that would be my marathon pace so as to not blow up. So that's where I was looking at. 4:30 was where my marathon pace was. So I was looking for the 3:20-ish. And it did blow up because I picked up an injury with 5 weeks to go in the knee, and it wasn't really going away, wasn't really training. And sure enough, blew up at the 35K mark, and then ran like Forrest Gump just to maintain the 35. So Forrest Gump with the braces on, not the athletic Forrest Gump. But, it's just something that I would recommend. Consistency is king, and if you can set your goal as being consistent through the first half of this, your confidence, your body, and that's where that little bit of aggression comes in. So if you set that goal and you go out with that goal, you need to be aggressive to achieve that goal, because through 18 miles, that's where aggression needs to come in to get that goal. So that's why let the body kind of dictate, and then you won't be disappointed, because you will know roughly where you are, because it's just a number. Before you actually commit to any training, it is just a number. Time is something that happens. Getting to the start line is important. Getting to the finish line is more important. And time is just something that happens in the middle. But if you can do that comfortably, you'll really, really impress yourself with how quickly you can do a marathon.
If it's your first marathon, even though we didn't do it, we paid the price, I would recommend not having a marathon time. And I know, listening to this, if it's your first marathon time, you will have a marathon time, but I'm getting out of there, you probably shouldn't have a marathon time. But moving on to something a little bit different, and I want to focus on the heart rate training for you, because you've been more successful with this one. When or if did you start introducing more hills, considering like Dublin's not the flattest course? And I've known before, when I hang on enough training in, what really got me was the hills. So I know you talked about the first 4 weeks, you went more off heart rate. Was there a time where you're like, okay, this one session week, I either tackled the hills, or did you tackle more intervals one time a week to work on your speed work? Or was it just strides at the end of runs? Or what way did you tackle that? I know myself, I did one interval session a week, and everywhere around here is hills for me.
So, as we've just said, you don't want to go into that high intensity stuff in the first 4 weeks, because it's frustrating, particularly if you're basing yourself off heart rate zones. You'll end up walking up hills and running the flats until you condition the body. What you eventually move on in, so let's say week 1 to 4. Let's talk week 1, right? Week 1, I find it really hard because Sunday's always, and this is why everyone's going to be like, week one, why are you starting with this? Start week one with a yoga mat. Start on the Monday with yoga. Learn how to stretch. Get a good follow along. I use yoga with Adrienne on YouTube, and I do her running yoga, and it is a phenomenal stretch. But what's that going to start to embody is after you do a long run on a Sunday, now your Monday is dedicated yoga day, and it's a bit of a recovery day. And now all of a sudden you have the habit of Monday night yoga. If we go then Tuesday, I always use that as the back into the week run. So that's my zone 2 run, 30, 40 minutes, and then a little bit of a cool down and stretch. Sometimes at the end of those long runs, I will practice strides, just to practice opening out the legs. It's not high effort sprints. Strides are not sprints. It's about working your gait, working to run like an athlete. It's about getting your cadence up, but it's not effort. It's not effort. 10 seconds maximum, maybe do it 3 or 4 times. It's just to remind the body that you can run faster. So Wednesday, hump day, always for me, always intervals.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't know why. Is it midweek to avoid the long run at the end and get it further away from that, or what's going on there? Because I'm the same. Wednesday interval day for me for as long as I remember doing, well, when I'm on track doing my runs. So
you don't want to put 2 hard runs together. And Saturday is usually my second hard run. So Wednesday is far enough away from Saturday. And then Sunday, you always want to be running on slightly tired legs on Sunday. So this is, again, intermediate. We're talking about 5 runs. So when we're running on the intervals, for me, you can do these on time or you can do them on distance. For me, initially, I think distance is a great way to do it because it's very, very easily measured. It'll be over in 400 meters and you'll be annoyed at yourself because it's only 400 meters. But what you're aiming to do is get your heart rate into zone 4. For me, that's up in the 170s. So you have to imagine you're coming from a rest, heart rate 125. You need to push so hard to get to 170 within 400 meters. When you hit the 400 meters, it says run for 90 seconds in most training plans. I walk. I try and get that heart rate down as quickly as possible. So you want to think of it like a spike. You want to get up to that threshold and drop it straight off. So what I do for the 90 seconds is I'll walk for the minute and then I'll jog for the 30 seconds to get the heart rate up to that 136, 140. And then I'm nearly ready to start the sprint then. So initially week 1, 6 by 400, 6 by 200. But if you're going 6 by 400, they say 90 seconds rest. If you need 2 minutes, take 2 minutes.
Yeah.
The importance is the ability to get through the 6 at roughly the same finish time. So for 400 meters, it should take you, depending on your ability, either 1 minute 25, 135, 2 minutes, whatever it takes you, it takes you. But that's the consistency. You will notice that build over a couple of weeks. You can add in another 100 meters or you can add in another rep. So there's 2 ways to up that over a couple of weeks. But Wednesdays for me is always intervals. It's the middle of the week. It's horrific. And you just have to get through it.
You were saying there that they have to be at similar times. By that, you're talking about as well, the first 2 or 3 feeling relatively easy, not easy, but not manageable. Easy. But the last 3 being like, you know, you're going to finish, but you have to dig deep to finish, but you still want similar times, as opposed to like, the first interval is done, let's say 40 seconds, and then it's 42, and then it's 44, and all of a sudden it's 50 seconds. Yeah. And the last one, you're walking in near the end, it's a 1 minute 20. You went from 40 to that, which you don't want. You want to even kind of pace rather than feel like you're teaching yourself to quit then if you're going too fast to start and you can't finish those 6 or whatever it is.
When you get to the third one, the best way I always describe this is first one, you're like, yeah, I'm an animal. Second one, you're like, oh, I'm a bit tired. The third one, you should regret that you chose to do 6. So you should already begin to lose count and start to go, was this number 3 or tell me this is number 5? And then it is a case of holding on. But you have to just trust you've had 2 minutes recovery. Your heart rate is low. Tell yourself all these things. Now it's time to go back to zone 4. And then bang, you do it again and you hold on. And you do need to be aggressive with yourself. You have to be aggressive. Katie sat here one night with me on the bike and I was doing a hard session. and she heard me calling myself all sorts of names. Come on, you fat. Yeah, everything was thrown at myself. She was like, who are you talking to? I was like, what? What are you on about? She's like, you were just shouting. I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't even remember. But you have to have that aggression. Otherwise, you're going to give up. You're going to give up every time. But that's intervals. That is intervals.
Yeah, I was in the gym today, working, and person they're going for a PB on their bench press as many as they can, and they're like, "F this, obliging that," and I was like, "Gee, okay, fair enough." And then there's like, at the end of it, they're nice and calm. Like, have you ever seen Mythbusters? It's like, I know of the show. Why? I said, like, it's statistically proven that if you properly curse, you can get an extra 20% more effort than if you just like frick this or that. Like, if you get a proper curse out of it. And it made sense to me straight away, because like you said, it's pretty much you saying it more eloquently, getting more aggressive with yourself and just going with it. And even saying that, I feel more fired up doing that, as opposed to just sometimes with those intervals, it's go time, because you've had most of your sessions during the week where you're like slowing it down, steady pace. Now that's that chance to get fired up and really go hell for leather on it.
Yeah, I know, 100%. And that's, to be honest, I even forget some of the names I call myself, but it gets me through it. It gets me through.
Don't think you got thick skin.
Yeah, I hate myself. But that's Wednesdays. It's always Wednesdays. And then as you move from your 6 reps up to 8 reps, your 2 minutes might turn into 90 seconds rest. You may then double it. You may go 800 meters and take your 90-second rest. Once you get to about 1 kilometer reps, you need to start switching intervals for time. So then It would be 10 minutes zone 2 running into 10 minutes zone 4 running. Now, as you progress through the weeks, you're now building yourself up to the PBs. Do you get me? Yeah. So instead of just running to the interval till you stop, now it's a time game. Now you're just running till how long is left? 10 minutes. It's a different animal, but that's how it progresses for me.
Are you starting to notice at this stage, this is further on with time, so you're probably about 6-8 weeks down the road at this stage, are you starting to look at your zone 4 for 10 minutes and thinking, what this pace I'm holding here? Is this near marathon pace, this faster marathon pace, slower marathon pace, or are you not even taking that far yet? Are you still waiting 6 weeks out?
I just set the watch to the zone and I try and keep it in the zone. And what I found towards the latter end, when you stick to the heart rate training, I cannot get into zone 4 for all the effort in the world. So if I'm doing a 10-minute interval, it probably won't come into zone 4 until I get through 6 minutes. And I'm running at a 350 and I'm like, I actually can't keep this pace. My body is like, what the hell? So because I'm not used to running that fast, I'm not a fast person. I don't have an athletic runner's gait, like it's just growling and spitting. But when you get fitter, when you stick with the heart rate training, it gets really hard to get into that zone 4, and that's the beauty of it. That's the magic point. That's where you want to go.
So every time I've done it, I talk about a marathon on this. Pretty much from the get-go, I've set a time. For example, I haven't set one for Dublin this year for loads of reasons. We're gonna have different podcasts about. But like last year, the goal was the 3:30, and everything built around the 3:30. And before was always trying to break 4 and stuff like that. But the heart rate training, the year you did 3:35, and I'm probably answering your question already, but like you're probably one of the fittest I've ever seen you, because you did all the triathlon and stuff. But what motivated you to do the marathon when you didn't know that end goal until 6 weeks out, and you're 16 weeks out training for it? Do you know what I mean? Like, what was your motivating drive to get out there in days you didn't want to get out there?
What was the motivator? I suppose knowing people doing it as well. Ozzy was going for it as well. So knowing that someone else was in the hurt locker too,
and they were to go a fast time, like you probably had an idea what they were going at. So you would have a rough ballpark at that stage, no?
Yeah, but even halfway, I was like, I'm cruising. I am doing well. I was going out on the weekend and running 11Ks at a 4:10. You know, like
was that feeling better was kind of motivating to keep going rather than just the end goal? Interesting.
Yeah, it was
probably a better way of looking at it than why I did it.
The fact, I remember it was in Fairyhouse Racecourse when they used to let people run around Fairyhouse Racecourse. The inside track is a 2.4K loop. And I was there doing a 16K, and it was zone 4 pretty much. And it ended up being 16K. But as I said, zone 4 was really hard to get into. I think I was running at a 4:15 or a 4:11. 4:11 was the pace, I remember it. And one guy was out for a walk with his dog. Usually people do 1 lap and they leave it. He went for a second lap, but he seen me go through 8, 9 laps, and every time the pace was still a 4:11, and he was like, Jesus Christ, fair play to you there, bro. You're a fit whore. I was like, yeah. But it was at that point I was like, Jesus, like this, there is something here. Like there's the potential to do, forget about this 4 hour. There's a potential to go sub 3.5. And that was the first realization. Apart from that, it was just enjoying that journey of being that fit, having a resting heart rate of 42 or something. It was absolutely ridiculous. So it was that motivated me for doing it. I know people want a time goal, but consistency goal should be your best friend. If you don't let yourself down each week, it's far more important than thinking of a time. And then your heart rate, when you do your half marathon on the 23rd of September, like I will do, it's my birthday, by the way, big way to celebrate. We'll do a half marathon. And that will dictate. If you are going your best effort for the half marathon plus 10%, so your best effort less a bit, that will give you the confidence, and not only that, will give you the best guide for your marathon time. So if you think your marathon's pace is going to be a 5-minute pace, you do your half marathon at a 4:50, and you see how bad you are crossing through that halfway mark and see how you're fixed. If that wasn't a bother to you, maybe 4:50 is your marathon pace. So do you get what I'm saying? Your body will tell at the appropriate times, and the 23rd of September Dublin Half Marathon is a great guide. And only after that day should people start going, here's what I'm about. This is my goal.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I've never asked you this. I don't know why. On marathon day or half marathon day, your build-ups, I know you look at heart rate. Are you staying in zone 4 rest right through? I'm pretty much in zone 5 from the get-go, and I'm there for 3.5 hours, which makes no sense. But I know, looking at my heart rate, it's slightly different to the way yours is. It's like 90% max effort. Like those that have my zone belts, it's in the red pretty much the whole way through, which is pretty much zone 5. What's your heart rate when you're doing, or when you did the 3:34 marathon? Was it slowly building, or is it kind of like, I know how I feel and that's it?
It does slowly build. And again, what I want people to think is the two principles, the aerobic and anaerobic. And if people don't know what anaerobic is, just remember it has an N, and you can't do it for very long. So I say N means not very long. So they reckon you've got 90 minutes of maximum effort before the body burns out of all the energy it has stored, and that's when you're really into your cramps, your this and your that. Don't get me wrong, some people have phenomenal ability. They can sit in that 170 like you all day because that's all you're used to, and you just get by and grin and bear it. But for me, I'm a much better athlete than Sean. No, for me, it's about managing that. And if I know I'm at a 150 heart rate coming through the half, I know I can do a negative split. I know I can go faster in the second half because I can allow it now to creep up because I've only got 2 hours to go. So then that's the important part for me. For me, I'm always more wary of the blowing up than I am of the time. So if I know I'm keeping it comfortable, even 160 through the half, I'm thereabouts. And then I'm happy to go into the push zone. And now Cork was different. I hit 190 through the half. So that was a very big difference into heart rate management, so I hadn't got the fitness to do it for a start, and the heat didn't help. But it's just one thing to consider with your heart rate management. And you will notice, remember I said about pressing the lap every time your heart rate, you lose the run of it. If you monitor that through your training, you will understand what level you can go to if you know you've done 20 minutes in zone 4 and you've never got longer than 20 minutes before it went to zone 5.
Okay, fair.
Do you get me? So but you can start to see, and each of these things are building confidence. Right. So when you come through 30k and you see 155 heart rate, you have no excuse. So you should be checking in and saying, I'm not working hard. I'm not sore. I'm just feeling sorry for myself. Yeah. Get running. And these are all little things that just make you do what you don't want to do. And that's a check-in. I do it myself. It's a heart rate's fine. Mechanically, I'm fine. Stop complaining. Get on with it. Look at the road. Look at the corner. Just keep going. Follow the balloon. Stop thinking about it. You're not tired. Look at your heart rate. Yeah. And take a deep breath in through the nose. Nasal breathing brings your heart rate down. 5 or 6 beats. If you're starting to see it drift on you, you're panicking. Take a few nasal breaths. I notice when you breathe in deeply through the nose, not through the mouth, through the nose, it calms down that nervous system. To just bring it down a couple of beats so you can manage that zone a little bit more. So you're just trying to scrape the extra energy. You're trying to just store all that energy. Now look, different strokes for different folks, but this is what I work with and stick to.
Yeah, it's mad. Like a couple minutes ago, you're talking about having your nidfuls, like calling yourself all sorts of names there. But you practically described there was just that positive affirmations and having things that have like going through the Hurt Locker through different runs and all these weeks and just being like building yourself up on marathon day, like, hey, I've actually been through this before, and having that visualization, I suppose the word I'm looking for, of getting through the finish line and knowing where you are at different stages. But what are we doing Friday?
Oh, you skipped Thursday, Sean.
No, he said Thursday. Did you say Thursday?
Wednesdays was
Wednesday interval. Oh, we're back to Thursday.
It's a good thing I'm keeping you in check. Thursday, this is where, now again, we're talking about intermediates or possibly the beginners, depending on what way you space out your runs. Stop running on Thursday. Pick something else. Okay. Running is boring. Maybe go for a cycle. Maybe do some weights. Maybe go for a swim. 16 weeks of doing nothing but running is so boring. But
someone tell the man we're doing a running podcast.
I have mentioned you want to swim. Why? No impact. You're still working your 1-2s. You're elongating muscles. You're getting a bit of a stretch. You're taking the weight off the body. You're doing something different. Going to do work on your stability work. You're working on the muscles. You're working from the ankles into the calves, into the quads. You're working on your stretching. Or you're getting on the bike because you want to just keep the heart rate in 130. Very hard to get the heart rate up on a bike on an easy effort. You're building, remember the pyramid we talked about?
Yeah.
You're building the pyramid, but you're taking the pressure off the knees, off the ankles, off the quads, off everything else. Sorry, not quads, you're cycling. But you're taking that impact off training, and that's the important thing. So we call it cross train. I'd be doing 45 minutes, something different, just something to keep it interesting. And it can be anything. It can be weights, it can be a swim, it can be a cycle. If you're looking to really build the aerobic base, I'd go swim, cycle. If you're looking to build stability and injury prevention, I'd be looking at prehab work, weight stability work. I'm not going in on the bench. I'm foam rolling. I'm doing lunges without weights initially over the first couple of weeks. I'm doing YWTs from my back, from my shoulders, making sure I have good flexibility in the body. And then I'll work on my sit-ups. I'll do plank because it's all about core. You don't want loose hips. Sean seen me in the first one. My hips were up and down like a... But the important thing is if you have good core strength, you develop a better run. You can maintain better gait throughout the run. So stop running on Thursdays.
Yeah, you have a sold in that. There's a couple of different things you can definitely do on that one. Friday.
Nobody likes doing anything on a Friday. Most people organize after work things on a Friday. Most people get shopping on a Friday. Most people do this. What are you not doing on Friday?
Running.
You're not doing anything. Enjoy your night off. Friday is rest day. It's the day before the weekend when you're going to do 2 of your biggest runs. The weekend is where the majority of people have most of their time. Friday is your night to go, do you know what? This was a good week. This is our night to have a glass of whatever, not more than 2 because you're going to be running the next day. And this is my night to get the takeaway. This is my night in with the kids. We're going to go to the cinema. And Friday is your not being selfish night. Friday is the night you consider everyone else is allowing you to do all the training that you're doing or allowing yourself to give yourself a pat on the back for all the effort you put in over the week. If you don't give yourselves those little rewards or remember the team around you who are letting you do the marathon or be inclusive with them on something, you have to bring people along over long periods of training at a time. And if you're doing that on a Friday night and you're setting aside that time, they will gladly let you go out then on Saturday morning and Sunday morning to get your longer runs in.
I'm feeling very selfish right now, but we've only ran Tuesday and Wednesday so far this week, and I'm feeling like I need to do a lot more, Eric.
Yeah, well, you've done yoga on Monday.
Okay.
Tuesday was an easy run. Wednesday, now we're in week 1. These get Wednesday's your intervals. Thursday, do something else for 45 minutes. Friday, rest day. Saturday, Sunday. Hold on to your hats. Saturday. You were asking me about hills.
Yes.
So some people like to do varied running training on a Saturday. So
what do you mean by varied?
It can be fartlek. It can be zone 2 into zone 3, back to zone 2, varying paces, speeds, and relative effort. Or what I like to do is, not everyone lives near the Phoenix Park, but this is an example. The Phoenix Park has a couple of hills in it.
Yes.
It also has a couple of flats in it.
Yes.
What I like to do is go to the said Phoenix Park, and rather than thinking about changing the effort, I keep the same pace, whether it's a hill or not a hill. And I'll do my 10K or 11K. I'm getting hill runs in. I'm getting running variation in. I'm getting zone differences in. So pick a hilly place and go for your run. When you look at week 1, a Saturday, you're looking at about 45 minutes of a varied effort. You want to be flirting with each of the zones. For me, it's hills. There's hills in the marathon, so get used to them. Use it as your varied training, because some parts of your run are going to be downhill, some are going to be flat, some are going to be uphill. My little tips for running downhill: lengthen your stride. Let the body fall down. Tip the chin forward, lean forward, let yourself come down the hill. Don't be trying to stop it because you put pressure on the knees. When you're going up the far side, a lot of people think they need to lengthen their stride and up the hill. Short, quick steps. So shorten the length of your stride. Take the steps quicker. And it tends to be a similar, not the same, but a lower effort than some people trying to grind up the hills, essentially. So it's just a little tip for running up the hills to try and maintain effort. Your heart rate will rise. You're going up a hill, but not to 190. It might go up to the 160. And then that's just 2 little tips for how to take on the hills. And that's always my Saturday. The length of time, some of the sessions will vary, but I try to get myself into the hills because I hate hills. So that's Saturday. Sunday, long run. So you just make it like a religion. It's Sunday. Your mass is at least an hour. It's 75 minutes. It's 90 minutes. It goes into 2 hours. It goes into the first 2 hours is zone 2. The last 45 minutes is zone 3. You're teaching yourself what happens after zone 2. The heart rate loses the run of itself. So now I'm going to run in zone 3. So you progress that over the 16 weeks up to the tapering point. But that's what Sunday always is, the long run.
You're talking about a lot of progression there, but you're mentioning time a lot. Is all your progressions time?
Yeah, it's time.
You always have time with progressions on.
Yeah, so when it comes to long run, it's all about time. It's all about time, because there's no point putting a distance on it. There's no point putting a pace on it. If you're going with heart rate, it's all about just time in zones. So if you can stay in your zone 2, you're going to progress. It'll start at an 8-minute kilometer, but by the time you're 8 weeks in, you're going to be running 5:30s in zone 2. So you're 2 hours in.
This is naturally goes up then.
It never gets easier. You just get faster.
Do you cap it? So one of the things I'd hear about long runs, long run in general, is that when you get past a certain point, so some people say it's 20 miles, some people say it's 2.5 hours, and I'm assuming it's more for time for yourself, and maybe the 2.5 hour, maybe not. Do you find you build just that point on a long run Sunday, and there's no point in going any longer than that time, or would you build towards that 2.5 hours to week 30 out of 16 and pull back, or what way would you do it with the heart rate training?
So here's an example of what I'm looking at from one of my previous ones. Week 11, day 7. So
5 weeks out.
Yeah, 5 weeks out on a Sunday. I spent 150 minutes in zone 2, and then zone 3 or marathon pace for 30 minutes after you've tired yourself.
The 3-hour run.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And that is pretty much the pinnacle. From 11 weeks, we start to trend down.
Next question, I suppose, tapering thoughts. That's 5 weeks out. Would you go with a 5-week taper?
It's not necessary. It is a taper, but Like in week 12.
It's a gradual reduction. You're still going really high. I could go from 3 hours down to 2.5 hours, but it's still.
Yeah, you're going from that then down to, well, there's still 180 minutes. It's still week 12. It's just slightly different. You reduce your zone 2 time. You're still going for a 3 hour, but you increase your zone 3 time. So that's probably.
It's probably going up then to week 13 or so, yeah?
Yeah,
week 13, week 14.
Week 13, again, it's 90 minutes zone 2, 60 minutes zone 3, and then it should be into the 3-week taper. I'll just double check. Yeah, it's into a taper. So the zone 2 comes down, but the zone 3 stays the same. And into week 15, you're looking at 10 minutes zone 2, 50 minutes marathon pace, 10 minutes zone 2. So week 11, 12, you should be peaking your longest runs. You should be increasing your zone 2. After you do your 2 hour zone 2, it's 30 minutes, 45 minutes zone 3. You lower your zone 2 to bring up your zone 3, if that's making sense. So for every minute you're taking off until the last 2 weeks.
It's still pretty hard. It's not easier then. Like, I know you're saying the longest 11 or 12. It's a little bit different to what you normally do distance, because your zone 3 is increasing, your zone 2 is decreasing. I have this right. You're covering more ground. You're actually, your distance to go with the old school method or my method, and not my method, but you're still going, you're covering more ground. So it's actually going up in distance, not time then. Time's actually decreasing somehow, but distance is increasing until week 13, 14 still, is it? Or what
week 13, it'll start to decrease. So week 12, you're up around, like, it's week 12, 13, you're just changing how fast you're running. You're still doing 180 minutes and 12, 13. You're still doing your 3 hours. So your week 13 probably will be your longest run.
Gotcha.
Because you're spending the most time in zone 3. But the most important thing is you're doing your zone 3 on tired legs. You'll have done your 1 hour zone 2 or your 90 minute zone 2, and then you're going for your zone 3 at 60 minutes or whatever. You know, you're building yourself up. But that's how I do it, because it's training you for crossing that halfway point, losing control of the heart rate as you go through. So you're giving yourself tired legs, you're increasing the pace, and that's when you're beginning to know. It's confidence. It's confidence to know, well, Jesus, I done 2 hours and then I ran an hour at the pace while I was tired. You're giving yourself the realistic time 4 weeks out, so you know, listen, I'm on for this. I have this in the legs. I've done the training. I've done the long run. When you see 3 hours on your watch in the marathon, you're like, I had done this. You know, it's only another hour to go. It's only another 20 minutes to go. It's only another 5 minutes to go. Whatever the case may be. So that's pretty much how it should progress. So week 1, you're looking at an hour, 75 minutes. Week 12, 11, 12, 13, they're big runs. And that's what you do in between to get to them stages. Probably add 10 minutes every week. I'm just trying to give people a guide to make their own plans.
I suppose we're hitting nearly 60 minutes apart in this podcast. So what I'm going to do is quick fire on just a couple of different topics around marathon training in 16 weeks. Just throw a couple of thoughts on them. I suppose realistic times to train would depend on the person. Will you more morning, evening, doesn't matter. I suppose the exception of the long run on the Sunday morning, because you want to kind of mimic that with the Dublin Marathon itself with the long run. And as well as that, it really answers the question then in terms of nutrition. What should you eat before a race? And say, hey, on week 11, you had a particular type of breakfast for doing those 3 hours and you felt good. I suppose that's the same week 12, 13, 14. Any thoughts on nutrition breakfast for the long run? Or nutrition during the run? For the longer runs only now.
Yeah, something we've discussed on many different episodes. Breakfast beforehand, I like a little bit of porridge, something light. You'll have had your big meal the night before or 2 days before, because you'll be upping the carbs coming into it. Don't test anything on marathon day. Make sure you're testing through your training periods. You don't want to find out you get a dose of the squits on the marathon day. And that's it. Just work yourself with water. Educate yourself on salt tabs. Don't do what I did, take one too early and end up peeing a little bit of blood. I know that's disgusting, but it happens. So all of these things, figure out week 11, 12, 13. Don't figure it out on marathon day.
Mini tapers. So what I've done before is after 3-4 weeks of long run, just go back distance for a quick second, so it's easier for me to explain. I will have done, let's say I have a mistake, long run being 12 kilometers week 1 or 14 kilometers week 2, 16 week 3. Week 4 might drop down to 12, just get a bit of recovery in. But then week 5 might get that extra jump back up to 16 or 18. And then you go 20, 22, drop back down a bit and then build it up there. Just because of distance, and it's easier for me to go, okay, week 14 or week 13, week 14, more likely for me with the tapering, would be getting that longest run in, the 30 odd K, and then working my way back towards week 1 for those long runs, because in my opinion, the longer run is the most important run of the week. Is that the same with heart rate training, or is the recovery kind of thing? Do you do taper weeks, mini tapers, or do you just keep constantly build?
No, it's just a constant build.
Constant
build. There's no real
pull back and go forward.
You're doing it. Yeah, you're trying to build to a peak. So it's the taper really is only a small drop on the peak. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to just climb a mountain. Then you kind of go down the mountain a little bit before race day so that you can go above the mountain. You know, your race day should be your peak. It should be your best effort. And it's actually the easiest effort because you're rested, which is important to remember. And that's why you taper. You build the carbs, you store the glycogen, you do your best effort rested. You've done all your other runs tired. So that's why most people and this is why I say consistency is king. You stick to consistency. The marathon is a victory lap. That's all it is.
Now, consistency is king really pushes on the very next question. Something went wrong. Your sister went and got married in a different country, whatever it is. You've messed up a week. Do you go back a week? Do you go forward a week? What way would you tackle it?
You're not going to lose the fitness you've built in a week. Kick on.
Would you skip the week and move on?
Never
heart rate training, because
never try and catch up on a training day.
Agree.
If you've done 10 weeks and your sister's getting married in the 11th week, we'll see you in week 12.
Yeah. Okay.
I done a marathon in 4 weeks training. If you've done 11 weeks and you miss a week, you are going to be substantially fitter. Your body might have even needed that break. Never, ever. Okay. If you skipped Wednesday's intervals and you didn't want to cross train on the Thursday, absolutely get the intervals in. Don't do the cross train element. But if you miss stuff because, say, Saturday, you just can't get out of what you have to do on Saturday, see you for the long run on Sunday, see you for the yoga on Monday, and let's get into the next week.
Have you, I suppose at the talk with breaks there, have you ever had, and you obviously have, at some stage, you're talking, just a long prelude to this question, you're contemplating the run. You think you feel tired. You're like, oh, I don't know with this one. You eventually put the runners on. You went out, you had a great run. So my next question is, listen to your body. When do you take that break, or when is the case of you're not really feeling up to it? When is I suppose, the phantom niggles? Like always before a big run or a big race, you're like, oh, my calf is going, my quad is going. And it's just your head messing with you, and it's just that day to go. But also sometimes it's like, you do need to rest. I actually don't know the answer to this one, but have you found a balance in that fine line? Has someone said something that's resonated with you in that one?
Yeah, I don't make any decisions less than 7K in.
That's a good way of putting it, because sometimes a couple of K in, it can be pretty hard. But at 7K, if you're not feeling it, then you're done. You're more likely to injure yourself.
Yeah, and if you are in that much pain, less than 7K, the decision's already made. Right. But if you're just being soft, figure it out after 7 kilometers.
So if it's on the plan, doing it.
Yeah, I find I actually don't settle into any run less than 5-6 kilometers. It's only then I actually start to relax and enjoy it. So I'll constantly be making every excuse. Then after 6 kilometers, like, I like to run. So don't, especially when it comes to marathon, don't injure yourself. But if it's sore enough, you'll know in the first 100 meters. You won't be figuring it out. But if you're going on an hour-long run, do 30 at least. Figure it out if it's just mental, or are you actually feeling a lot of pain. But
don't train through pain.
This comes with a big asterisk. There's a difference between mental softness and actual physical pain. You will know the difference. It's very clear. Don't be stupid and run through pain. But you can run through mental softness.
100% agreed. I think the last point there I have anyway, unless you've got something else that was well, Eric, I think something that's very overlooked in marathon training. It's something that's very easy. The best thing you could do to get to, in my mind, fitter, stronger, make right decisions. So when you are feeling like not feeling up for a run, one of the things that's going to get you out there for that run is how you slept. Like if you're not getting good quality sleep, if you're only getting 4 or 5 hours a night, you're getting broken sleep and everything else, forget about it. You're going to make those bad decisions, whether it's food choices or just not feeling up for it. Oh, I'll do it later because I'm too tired. Then that schedule plan, that schedule run, no matter what time it is, maybe it's 6 o'clock in the evening, you work a 9 to 5 and you can't do early mornings. Like, I want to run at 6. And you're like, oh, I'm feeling too tired. And you get some food and first. I need to lie down on the couch for a half hour, get a mini nap. Just watch this one episode of this one YouTube video. Next thing you know, it's 9, 10 o'clock and you need a good night's sleep before getting up next day. And you've missed that session all because you're up the night before scrolling through Instagram, whatever it is. You couldn't get a night's sleep. I know there's some legit reasons, but a lot of time is not prioritizing getting at least that 7 hours a night.
Yeah, no, sleep is vital. Recovery is king. You have to treat your sleep as one of the most important parts: nutrition, training, sleep, recovery. You know, like they're all vital for maintaining that consistency.
That's it. You got 16 weeks to go. Get on it.
Sorry, we went as in-depth as we could because we aren't giving out training plans anymore, but we hope people take a good bit from this and can start to build their own plans, and we'll see them out on the half marathon on the 23rd of September, and we'll see them on Marathon Day on the bank holiday weekend in October.
I got nothing else to add this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. We've definitely had a fair bit in that one. That's it from myself and Eric. Take care.
Bye.